People are horrified. You say, oh, our daughter died, she had epilepsy and she died.
Young people don't die. People don't die suddenly. They might accidentally get killed in a car accident, but they can't just die. That's just not possible. Rosie was our daughter. She was 24, almost 25 when she died as a result of a seizure.
Her epilepsy didn't stop her or didn't limit her. She was fairly compliant with the medication. She did learn to deal with that fairly early on. It's one of those hidden things that you couldn't really see that she was any different in a lot of ways. She didn't look different. She didn't act differently. It's a hidden disability, and that's hard to come to terms with, and it's hard for others to come to terms with. Before Rosie died, I had at the back of my mind, I knew that people could die from epilepsy or epilepsy-related conditions, but I did not know about SUDEP. I didn't know the word, I didn't know what it meant, and I suppose I put it aside because it wasn't something you think about. Nobody thinks about their child going to die unless they're confronted in the doctor's office. The doctor says, oh, your child has cancer and may die.
I think in my heart of hearts that Rosie did know that you could die from seizures or from complications. She never told me that. It's just a sense that I had that she knew that it could cause a death. I don't think she ever thought she would die from a seizure. Did that make her more reckless? It's a question for history. Did it make me overprotective? Probably. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes I'd say it's better for you to go and have a good quality of life rather than having me flapping in your face telling you what not to do. Certainly lack of sleep was a trigger for her. Very, very hot weather and excessive tiredness were definitely triggers over a time.
I was of the belief that Rosie would grow out of her epilepsy, which she didn't. It's just one of those things that I never thought about or dwelt on or never really considered. I knew it could happen, but I didn't give it any thought. Rosie wasn't going to die of epilepsy. Rosie had been out the night before and came home and sat and talked with us and went up to bed.
I had been talking and texting her, keeping in contact for the day. She was going to a 21st party and wanting to get a lift home the next day. She said, I'm going to start getting ready. And we came home. I thought, her music's not on. Our bath leaks, and she was always in trouble for overflowing the bath. And I was sitting there, and if you look where that square is up there, I noticed there was water on the carpet. So I called her from the bottom of the stairs, no response. And I sent Andrew upstairs, knocked on the door, no response. I said to him, you will need to open the door.
I banged on the door, opened the door, and I will never forget, never ever, and that will be with me till I draw my last breath, what I saw.
I can go through the rest of my life without having anyone ever call me the way that Andrew called me after he opened that door. And when I heard my name like that, I knew. I just knew, even before I raced upstairs. Constable Rachel said to me, look, I have to do this officially. I have to notify you that she is deceased. I wasn't allowed to go back upstairs because the place was sealed off as a crime scene. So, which just sounds really odd, but because she was young and she was home alone, and I thought once I said, oh no, look, she had a medical condition, they said, no, we have to be sure. I would have to say dealing with the coroner's office was a particularly bad experience. It takes a long time. You're not allowed to have a funeral until the body is released. I used to have to ring up every day to get a progress report.
She was in constant contact with the coroner's office, trying to find out what was going on, trying to find out more information, and they'd call up and they'd launch into the latest findings, which were quite graphic at times, and what was actually going on and what they were doing. I would certainly like to see a greater conversation and an openness about the notion that you can die of epilepsy.
What would need to change is, for me, is the information, whether it come through schools, through medical people, through talking about it, as they say, having the conversation. I think you've got to be careful with sensitive information. I don't think you need to walk into your doctor's office and say, you have epilepsy and now you will die. Obviously, that's what not to do. I'm surprised by some of the reactions I've had even from doctors. Well, what do you mean they died? Which seems a very odd question for a doctor, but we have actually had that more than once. And can you explain to us what happened?
If there are ways and if there are factors which reduce the risk of death from epilepsy, then that also needs to be put out there.
Grief ongoing, so we're at almost 3 years now. It changes. It's a mixture of the good, the bad and the ugly. Some days it can make you feel like you really are losing your mind, and sometimes it's just all cruel and awful, but there is a good side to it. And my favourite quote from one of my favourite books is that grief is the price you pay for love, and you wouldn't want to have missed out on the loving relationship, so you're willing to pay the price for the grief if the person you love dies.